Fox 5 and Hot 97 present Street Soldiers with Lisa Evers.
The trial, United States of America versus Sean Diddy Combs.
She says Diddy raped her and assaulted her. She said that telling him no was not an option.
Shocking allegations against one of the most famous men in the world.
As we proceed to give you what you need.
A federal RICO case that could send Sean Diddy Combs away for life.
He's going to fight this to the end. He's innocent.
A Street Soldiers on location special from federal court. Diddy on trial, the fight of his life. I'm so glad you're joining us for this special episode of Street Soldiers on location at the Diddy Trial. I'm your host, Lisa Evers. We're bringing this to you from our pop-up street studio outside federal court. And what a week it has been. Sean Diddy Combs sat at the defense table, his chair pushed back a little bit, his hands in his lap, folded and completely motionless as his former personal assistant, who was using the pseudonym Mia, testified on the stand that she was brainwashed. That's why she kept texting him affectionate messages years after she left, and that even though she testified earlier that he repeatedly sexually assaulted and abused her for years. Now, Diddy's mother, Janice Combs, was in court again today, as she is most every day, supporting her son. Mrs. Combs' name came up in testimony by former Bad Boy Chief Financial Officer Derek Ferguson. He told the court she was listed as the owner of a number of Combs' businesses. The former CFO, who hails from the Bronx and earned a Harvard MBA, detailed how Combs motivated his staff with his hard work, that he paid his taxes regularly, and that he never saw Combs engaged in prostitution or commit any acts of violence. This was a tough day on the witness stand for this alleged victim, who claimed Sean Diddy Combs dangled her over a 17th floor balcony by her armpits. Now, Brianna Bongalin, you'll see she's the woman, the petite blonde wearing the plaid jacket here, was forced to admit under a very, very tough cross-examination that she was not only Cassie Ventura's friend, she was also her drug dealer. This bombshell testimony happened in the 26th floor courtroom at federal court. Brianna testified that she still has nightmares from when Combs allegedly dangled her by her armpits over that balcony. I have to tell you that some legal experts are saying that these prosecution witnesses have been making plenty of headlines, but they have growing questions about whether the prosecution is actually proving this RICO sex trafficking case. Now, this morning, Diddy accuser Brianna Bongalin was back on the witness stand for a second day of tough cross-examination. Yesterday, she claimed on the stand that Sean Diddy Combs dangled her over a 17th floor balcony and pushed her into furniture. Today, she's getting pushback from the lawyer. She's testifying under an immunity deal, and we now know why that was so critical. Diddy attorney Nicole Westmoreland, who our camera captured going into the courthouse this morning, sliced up her testimony on the stand like a sushi chef, even getting her to contradict her original statements to prosecutors. There's a lot to unpack here. Let's get right to the key issues in this case with attorney Robin Nunn. She's been in court for much of the trial. Now, the witnesses, as you know, have been making a lot of news headlines, but are they making any headway with the jury, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the prosecution is trying to build their case really brick by brick, and that's going to be a high bar. They've charged Diddy with racketeering, with sex trafficking, with, crossing straight lines with prostitution. These are really high federal crimes, and they require a lot of evidence. And then while they've started, I can't say that they've made their case as of yet.
So still more to go?
A lot more to go.
What about with the witnesses, because the alleged victims, because they are saying things and then the defense comes up with evidence that they had text messages long after their contact with Diddy or the relationships with Diddy ended that seem to contradict that, telling them they love him, they miss him, that type of thing. What effect does that have on the jury, do you think?
Yeah, I think it has a big effect. Diddy has a team of really high-profile defense lawyers, and they're doing an excellent job of cross-examining these witnesses, cross-examining the evidence that they're putting forward, and really going into the heart of whether someone can really have this long-term relationship, have all of these sort of social media posts that lead one to conclude that they are a mentor, a friend, a loved one, and those types of terminologies being used publicly and outwardly, but now they're saying that they were actually abused, they were being tortured, they were being forced into working situations that were hostile and untenable. So it's tough.
And even Mia, the one who went under the pseudonym Mia, the ex-assistant, saying that she was brainwashed. That's why that was her answer when she was cross-examined about why did you stay in contact with this man years after you were gone.
Yes, Mia is an example of witness number 4 who is testifying under anonymity. Her identity, her face is not being shown, her name is not being used. She wants no connection to actually publicly being a part of this case, but as alleged, despite having some facts that have come out to the contrary, that she had a really difficult time and that she is now unable to work based on her treatment by Diddy during her employment with him.
And what about the defense? Because there's so many different lawyers, there's a big team, you have different people going up for these cross-examinations. How do you think the defense is doing?
I think the defense is walking a really tight rope here. Like on some levels, these are victims. There has been some admission by Diddy that an act did occur that he is not proud of. So there is some level of, carefulness with how you interact with people who have claimed to be sexually abused or assaulted by someone in a position of power. But then there's another aspect where it's getting to the credibility of these witnesses. Credibility is going to be key in this case, whether or not the jurors believe that these people are relatable, that they're telling the truth, that their story is believable, or whether they have something else to gain.
What about the defense tactics?
Yes, the defense is doing, I think, a really excellent job of talking to the witnesses, to reminding them of some of the things that they said in the past that they might not quite recall. They've been scouring social media and doing a lot of research and finding old posts, old videos, old pictures.
Terabytes of information, they said.
Exactly. And so they're bringing that forward, and those are things that the prosecution and maybe even the witness might not remember, might not have expected, but is coming forward and is now being put in front of the jury and letting them judge.
How critical is consent? Because the defense has said, listen, we admit he's abused women. We admit he's got an explosive temper that sometimes turns violent, a drug abuse problems that he had in the past. We admit all of that, but he's not a sex trafficker. He's not guilty of these charges in this. What about that, this issue of consent?
Yeah, I think consent is going to be a real issue here for the prosecution. There are some that are arguing that they overcharged because a lot of the witnesses have come forward. They were not prepped by the prosecution, and they're saying that they, in fact, agreed to this, were paid, that they had a good time, that they thought Cassie and other individuals involved liked it. So I think consent is going to be a real issue.
And then are there certain bars that they have to hit? Like for the RICO is the sex trafficking, right?
Yes, they do.
The big one.
A big one. And it's a high bar. It's not isolated acts. I can't just, take money or drugs or use guns and that be enough. It has to be an enterprise, that all of these people were working together for a common interest in order to make money. And that's going to be really tough in this case.
And then in terms of the transporting prostitutes across state lines, there was a lot of evidence early on in the case when Cassie got on the stand talking about booking these sex workers and flying them in here and there. What about that? Is that a tough charge?
I think that is also going to be a tough charge. I think they're asking for more than just prostitution or drug usage here. They're asking for actual intent, inducement, forcing people across state lines. And a lot of the people have testified that they like to use drugs. They willingly, voluntarily, in order to get through their daily jobs, that they took them and asked for them and requested them. And sometimes other people other than Diddy paid for the drugs and requested the drugs. So I think it's going to be, again, a really, really, really tough to prove these charges.
Finally, that element of coercion that they need might be tough.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, there's definitely been a lot of testimony about abuse, about involuntary servitude situations where they had to work long hours, perhaps even against their will in some instances. But I think that, again, that it can't be isolated acts. It has to be an enterprise. And that's where I think this case is going to really hinge on.
Stay with us. We've got more for you after this.
When they see that other people are accepting the behavior, again, you draw the line based on what you see other people accepting.
Welcome back to this special episode of Street Soldiers on location at the Diddy Trial. I'm your host, Lisa Evers. No one, including Diddy himself, denied the abuse that Cassie Ventura suffered. But the question I keep getting asked is, why did she stay? We're joined right now by clinical therapist Dr. Elisa English to help answer that question. I'm sure you're getting this question too. People asking you, why don't people leave? Like Mia, who was on the stands, she was, which was her pseudonym. She says she claimed that she was raped by Diddy multiple occasions, other sexual assaults, physically assaulted, had a computer thrown at her head, a laptop, and yet she stayed. And years after she even left him, she was texting him affectionate messages. Why do you think that is? She said she was brainwashed. Is that a real thing?
Well, brainwashed is in fact a real thing. It falls under emotional abuse, and so when you're involved with someone, it can be in all sorts of circumstances: religion, jobs, interpersonal relationships, personal relationships. You begin to believe that toxic and inappropriate behavior is normal, particularly when people around them or the abuser are also validating that person. So it's difficult. You start to feel like the outsider. You're not the one who is sort of going along with everyone else, but you feel like if you refuse to go along, if you don't go along, that in some ways you're going to be, sort of outcast, or you're not going to be taken seriously. And you feel like there's going to be some level of retaliation. So people have a lot of fear around that.
Right, and then what about Cassie Ventura? You heard a lot of the testimony, you saw that story. She was physically abused. Diddy admitted that his team admitted that in court. He admitted it on social media. And yet she stayed with him for many years, and on numerous occasions, like after the 2016 hotel beating, she was asked by the security, do you want us to call police? We'll call police right now. She said, no, I don't want to talk to police. And there were other examples of her not talking to police. But what about the fact that she stayed, and even after she left him after all of that, was still texting him, I love you, I need you, and things of a very graphic nature?
Yeah, well, when it comes to her, she had an emotional attachment to him. There were certain things that they shared in common. She admittedly spoke about some kind of substance use between the two of them. There was also a heavy level of financial, support that he was providing to her. So there is a level of accountability, but at the same time, it was very difficult for her to find her way out of a situation like that. We tend to validate people and make excuses for bad behavior when there's some kind of reward in it for us. And so, we don't want to take any blame away from her. We also don't want to shame her for whatever experiences she was engaging in. But at the same time, she was young, she was growing, she had to come into herself. Sometimes it takes a long time for people to come up with an exit plan and an exit strategy. And that takes time. Even after the exit, people always believe in change. And isn't that wonderful? But at the same time, it's not right for people to take advantage of other people. And in this case, it sounds like, admittedly, given that he settled the case with her, that he felt a sense of responsibility for taking advantage or using his power in a way that hurt and harmed other people.
So you're a strong proponent and advocate for mental health. So where do we draw the line between control and support? Where does a woman draw the line between a guy who's trying to help her or give her, a helping hand in her career, and then actually taking control down to the point where, no, you can't wear this dress, or you can't wear that outfit, or you can't hang out with this person? Like, where's the healthy line in your opinion? How do we know that?
The healthy line is when you have a healthy understanding and respect for yourself. And so you know your level of tolerance, what you want to have in your life, what you do not. And so you have to take accountability at some point to say, no, this is where I draw the line. Can you become comfortable in a situation? Absolutely. Can you have fear about moving out of a situation? Absolutely. But there's the healthy line or boundary is within you. And let's also remember that people have certain levels of cognitive deficiencies. And so what happens is we don't always know, and we're not speaking about the victims here, but maybe they don't always have awareness around what that boundary is because of whatever childhood experiences that they have gone through. So it takes them time to figure that out. Also, when they see that other people are accepting the behavior, again, you draw the line based on what you see other people accepting. This is a guy who's been given all sorts of accolades in our society, right? Rewards, recognition. And so how do you then say, this is unhealthy for me? She admittedly loved and enjoyed the experiences, but at the same time, she did not deserve or want the abuse.
Real quick, as we wrap up here, what do you think women who've been raped or been sexually assaulted need to do?
they need to seek help. They need to have their family close to them, because oftentimes perpetrators like to isolate people. And the one thing they do is keep you away from your family and friends, because they're usually your voice of reason. So the first thing they need to do is get back in touch with their trusted and circle of love, right? And then figure out a way to their exit strategy.
Don't go away. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back to this special episode of Street Soldiers, on location at the Diddy Trial. I'm your host, Lisa Evers. You know, nowhere is the interest stronger in what's going on here at federal court than in the hip-hop community. We're joined right now by hip-hop journalist Mark Elebert, who's going to give us some insight. Is it just me, or do you feel like there's a shortage of real hard facts that we would normally use to tell these stories in this case?
Yeah, there is. I feel like it's a lot of he say, she say that's going on right now, and it's only like 3 or 4 weeks into the trial, and we don't have all the facts that are out there. And, you know, there's a lot of allegations out here, a lot of serious, heinous allegations, and people are just quick to say, oh, yeah, he did this, he did that, and we're seeing his career fall apart because of that. And I'm not saying, like, you know, he didn't do it, but it's like we can't pass judgment on somebody if we don't have stone cold hard facts.
Also, too, like the prosecutor said, okay, 20 years of crimes allegedly committed by Sean Diddy Combs, and the only one who did call the police was Kid Cudi when he thought his home was broken into and saw his car.
Yeah. It's crazy. I mean, again, we have to get as much as the stone cold hard facts so that we can actually determine, well, not us, but the court can determine. And then when it comes time for public perception and the public determining what they want to view him as, then we can do that. And there's so much going on. So it's like, I'm just trying to understand why people are just, you know, trying to pass judgment so quickly.
Like a rush to judgment.
Exactly, yeah.
So what about, in terms of the hip-hop community as a whole, do you feel like people have amnesia about his accomplishments?
You know, I grew up with Diddy. You know, I will say this, he was one of my idols and one of the people that I looked up to as a young black man in Harlem, New York, that, you know, was trying to make it out here. And, you know, I remember what he did for us and hip-hop music and music in general and pop culture. But we're in a generation now where it's like, it's more of like, oh, let's make fun of people and let's make people meme worthy. So it's not that they're like forgetting what he did, they're taking what he did and then trying to flip it and flip the story and try to tell a different narrative now. Like, I thought about this yesterday, like, if a mother wants to go buy baby oil, you know, they might look at the cash register, the person ringing them up, and think of Diddy automatically. And, you know, it's just a natural thing right now. A lot of people are trying to change his character. It's not amnesia, it's more so like, you know what, he did a bad thing. And that goes with people passing judgment so quickly. It's like, all right, he did something. Regardless of the facts, we're going to make him that person and turn him into this monster that we can't really say yet until we come down to the facts and what's going on in this case.
Right, and he's pleaded not guilty to the sex trafficking, to the racketeering, to the prostitution, all of these different charges. But what about the coverage? Because you're talking a little bit about that. Talk with us about that, like what you see, because as a journalist, you have to stay on top of what everybody's saying. It's like, what kinds of threads of thought or trends do you see happening?
I'm seeing a lot of people rushing to get those headlines, and that's a very dangerous thing to do in the journalism industry. As journalists, as I'm sure you know, Lisa, we can't fully cover on something unless we get the stone cold facts. If we don't have that, then we're considered sensationalism and just putting stuff out there for clickbait. And, you know, that separates, I hate to say this separates the major players from the people who are happy to be here. People are getting these notes and they're trying to submit it over as quick as they can, and whatever they hear, they tell their editor or whoever's, you know, writing it down for them. And then I guess to add that little boost, you know, let's pump it up a little bit more. And it's just like, guys, we can't do that. We can't do that.
What about in terms of the women and the accusers? What are people saying about that?
You know,
what questions are they raising?
Yeah, they're pretty much trying to figure out, you know, what's really the truth here, because there's stuff that's been said about Cassie that people are questioning, like, what's really going on here, you know? And I think that it's messing it up for the women who have really gone through situations like this, and it's proven that they went through situations like this, and it's just a mess. And there's people out here who are really suffering. That's not saying Cassie's not suffering, but it's like right now, up until this point, it still is he say, she say. So
right, because none of these accusers called police. None of them went to hospitals that we know of. Because I'm sure they would have testified to that.
Yeah.
There were no rape kits or anything of that nature. answer, and they stayed.
Yeah, they stayed.
I think that's the other thing. A lot of people are asking the questions like, why did you stay, or why did you keep texting him, I love you, or, you know, I miss you, and this type of thing.
Yeah.
So a lot of questions. One final word, how should people really be looking at what they're seeing, would you advise? Because, you know, a lot is on social media.
Yeah, they got to look at it with due diligence, with their eyes open, and they can't believe everything that they see out here because, you know, we're living in a time now where technology is taking over. AI is the biggest craze right now, and anything can be made up right now.
A lot to think about for sure. We'll be right back after this. Thanks for joining us for this special episode of Street Soldiers on location at the Diddy Trial. You can watch the show again and share it on our Fox 5 NY YouTube page and in the Street Soldiers section on the Fox Local app. I'm Lisa Evers. Remember, use your mind. It's your best weapon. Let's push for peace, love, and justice for all.